This is episode 104 of The Place of Sound, and I'm your host, Katerina Kalinowska. For those of you who are listening to us for the first time, The Place of Sound is a show that explores the themes of space and place using sound and listening. This is done through a variety of audio media production formats, so you can expect to do a few different types of listening in a single show. Episodes consist of what we refer to as audio portraits or oral history-style interviews that explore topic of home, soundscape compositions, which use everyday sounds to communicate the personal and social significance of a given place, and we typically end the episode with a short documentary-style piece that explores the place-based identity of the producer. The aim with these projects is to allow the producer to think about the places that made them who they are today. These are the types of projects you can expect to hear on The Place of Sound, and all of them are produced by students here at Carleton University. They're what gets produced in COMS 4501 Digital Media Production, which is a fourth-year workshop course in the Communication and Media Studies program. Spring is finally starting to feel possible again. Ottawa is still doing that early March thing where one day feels like winter hasn't moved an inch and the next day you can suddenly imagine patio season. Bikes back on the street and people lingering outside a little longer than they need to. And maybe that's part of what makes this a good moment to talk about cities. Not just as place we pass through, but as places we actually live in, rely on, and try to shape together. Today's episode takes us to the Ottawa Public Library, where people have gathered for a meeting of the Ottawa Urbanism Book Club, hosted by Strong Towns Ottawa. If the name sounds familiar, that's because Strong Towns is part of a much larger movement. It began in the United States when engineer and planner Charles Morin started writing in 2008 about the financial fragility of the way North American cities are built. By 2009, that blog had become Strong Towns as an organization. Today, the movement describes its mission as helping cities, towns, and neighborhoods become safe, livable, and financially resilient. What makes the movement especially interesting is that it doesn't really operate through formal local chapters. Strong Towns calls them local conversations, groups that are initiated and run by people in their own communities, not by a central office. As of now, the organization says there are more than 290 local conversations spread across both US and Canada. And Canada is very much part of that picture. Ottawa has its own local group, of course, but so do cities like Toronto and Calgary, each adopting the Strong Towns approach to their own local issues and priorities. Strong Towns Ottawa describes itself as a group focused on making the city more self-sustaining, resilient, and simply nicer to live in. Their priorities include transit, housing, street safety, and the long-term financial choices cities make. What I find especially compelling is that the group doesn't seem interested in making urbanism feel like homework. Yes, they care about zoning, bus lanes, and infrastructure maintenance, but they also seem to understand that people are more likely to stay involved if civic life feels social, welcoming, and maybe even a little fun. And that's partly why the book club matters. So today you'll hear two short conversations from that event. First, I speak with Derek Simpson, Urbanism Book Club host, about how the group got started, what it is working on, and why building community is just as important as publishing policy. Then you'll hear from Missy Thomas, one of the book club attendees, who reflects on what keeps people coming back and what makes these discussions feel meaningful. Let's begin. All right. For all the listeners, my name is Katerina Kalinowska, the host of The Place of Sound, and I'm here today with...
My name is Derek Simpson, I'm a volunteer with Strong Towns Ottawa, and we're here today at the Ottawa Public Library for the Ottawa Urbanism Book Club.
Thank you for an introduction. Can you briefly tell us what we're here today and Strong Towns Ottawa initiative?
Yeah, so we're here today to discuss Ottawology, which is by Tanya Davidson, who's actually a Carleton professor. And our book club meets once a month. We discuss how to make Ottawa more sustainable, more affordable, how to make it more enjoyable for people that live here. So a lot of the stuff we discuss is public transit, public housing and affordable housing, and just, how to make Ottawa a place where people want to live and want to stay.
That's very nice. How did Strong Ottawa get started, and what drew your personality to the group?
Yeah, so the group's been around for, I think, around 3 years. It's a funny way how I got involved. It was a very small group at the time, maybe about 10 people, and I'm involved with my community association, the Centertown Community Association, and we were trying to fix a certain road. We were trying to make it a lot safer, and a guy came to me and he said, "Hey, Derek, I see all this work you're doing. You should join Strong Towns Ottawa." And I looked into it. I saw what they were doing, and it was definitely something that was of interest to me. So since then, we have a Discord that's now over 600 members. We meet many, many times per month for many different reasons, and things are going pretty well, in my opinion.
I see. Who are involved? What are the people who are interested in Strong Towns Ottawa?
Yes.
Who know about it?
Yeah, so it's all local community members. So pretty much everyone lives in Ottawa. We have students, we have seniors, we have a good mix of working professionals and, parents and people who are families. It's all people that believe in Ottawa and want to see it get better. So a big thing we believe in is transparency and fairness for Ottawa. So, making sure the city is making good financial decisions. But a big thing that I think differentiates us is we try to make things fun. So, the Urbanism Book Club, you're allowed to come even if you didn't read the book. You live in Ottawa, we consider you an expert in Ottawa, so everyone's welcome. We meet once a month at a bar, and we just, hang out, we chat, and then we have something we've started recently, a more formal meeting once a month where, we get into actual city details and how do we fix stuff, what are we going to do here, stuff like that.
Nice. How big do the meetings get?
So it all depends. The book club is typically about between 20 and 30 people. I remember when we started out, there was this huge interest in it. And one of the meetings, we had 60 people.
Wow.
But the issue was everyone wants a chance to speak. And when there's 60 people, not everyone gets a chance. So it's very self-correcting. And about 30 is the sweet spot for us. And for our other meetings, it's typically between 20 and 30 people. And what we find works really well for us is getting people engaged online as well. So we have a Discord channel, which every day there's people chatting about it. We talk about OC Transpo, we talk about housing, we talk a lot about bikes and driving as well. So it's a great way for people to, keep up with their community and keep in touch on a daily basis.
I see. Are there any particular examples of when a Discord channel or a meeting resulted in solving a particular problem for somebody specific or just for the city?
So a big issue we're working on right now is bus lanes on Bank Street. So the city's doing a study on that right now, and we really want to see bus lanes there. We're saying this is a busy area. This is a fix that would be very, very affordable. It doesn't cost a lot of money. It's something we can do fast. Let's do it. So we've pushed for that a lot. We've had people that go out and they canvass. So they talk to students, they talk to people on the street. They've gone to Carleton many times. They've done work with CUSA. Another thing we did was we actually sponsored the sign at the Mayfair. Oh, nice. And we said, put bus lanes on Bank Street, basically. And we found that was a great way to get the word out. And at the end of February, we're going to see the results of our advocacy. We're going to see what the city is deciding on it. So we're very excited to see what happens there.
Yeah, and Bank Street, how many lanes is there? Probably close to 15 buses go through Bank Street every day, different routes, I mean.
Yeah, so Bank Street is a very busy bus corridor. It gets about 6,000 riders per day. A big thing for us, it has the 7, which goes to Carleton. So we want to make sure that Carleton students have a way to get to school quickly. I mean, the buses are worse than ever. There was a report 2 weeks ago that the 6 and 7, both the buses on Bank Street, were the most canceled in the city. And we want to see that fixed, and we think bus lanes would really help.
Yeah, I do believe that too. As a person who had to ride from Vanye to Carleton for a year, it's been like buses canceled, delayed 20 minutes, 30 minutes early, lecture never been on time.
Yeah, bus reliability is terrible right now, and that's another thing we've really been pushing for is more transparency around riding. We need to know when buses are getting canceled. We need to know what's going on.
Right. So you mentioned that transportation, housing. What are some initiatives that connect to other areas except for transportation? And what is the kind of manifestation of it in Strong Towns, Ottawa?
That's a great question. We've done a lot of advocacy around the zoning bylaw, and that's a thing the City of Ottawa is doing to essentially overhaul how it approaches housing. It sounds boring, but it's actually really, really interesting. So what the city is basically trying to do is to make it so that you can build more houses where people live. So, if you take a single family house, maybe you can turn that into a triplex. So 3 families can live there. And we've told them, we've gone to the city and we've said, hey, we think this is a great idea. Here's some other things we should do. One thing Strong Towns Ottawa really believes in is mixed use communities. So that means communities where it's not just housing. You can have maybe a coffee shop or a bookstore or a gym that's close to your house so that you can walk there easily. Maybe it's just a short drive away instead of having to go across town. And it really makes things much more convenient and enjoyable for people that live in Ottawa.
Yeah, I completely agree. It was one of the things that I noticed when I came to Ottawa from Kyiv, from the capital of Ukraine, which I was used to that. I believe convenience stores, at least in Kyiv, are all built that for every house there has to be at least one convenience store that is less than 5 minutes away from you, so you can buy your essentials like milk, bread, or whatever you need. Same with like gyms and stuff. And here I was like, oh, I need to like ride a bus 30 minutes to get to a gym? No, thank you.
Yeah, that's an area where sadly a lot of neighborhoods in Ottawa don't have the luxury of just stepping out of their house and going to a store very quickly, or driving for 3 minutes in a car as opposed to 20 minutes to get somewhere fast. And that's something that we really hope the zoning bylaw will help fix.
Right. And it's also the kind of makes it a car-based city, that you have to have a car to get anywhere, and transportation comes here as well with this problem.
Absolutely. And driving will always be necessary, and there's many benefits to it in Ottawa, but we want to see choices and we want to see diversity. So, we want to make sure that someone waiting for the bus is not waiting 20 minutes. Or someone that biking is not at risk of getting hit by a car and dying. It's tragic that happens in Ottawa. So we want diversity and fairness across Ottawa for all transportation modes.
Who does Strong Towns Ottawa speak to in terms of like city officials or municipal government? Like, how does that communication work, and through what avenues are you making your voices heard?
Yeah, we're very much issues-based. So I'll give you an example of Bank Street bus lanes. There was a great case study competition at Carleton last weekend. So this is early January right now. And there was a lot of councillors there, and some of them were not urban councillors. We saw Laura Dudas, who is a councillor in Orleans, and she came up to us and was very happy with the prospect of bus lanes. So one thing is, right now we're very urban focused, but we're trying to reach out into the suburbs, into the rural areas of the city, because those areas are some of the places that might need improvement more than other areas of the city.
Right. So what are some ways that Strong Towns Ottawa gets people involved? You mentioned strong online presence, but what are some other avenues, or how does the online involvement, how do you get people interested and know about you? I
think what really differentiates Strong Towns Ottawa, and I say this as someone that is a member of my local community association, is we try to make things fun. At the traditional community association level, things are kind of boring. We're always talking about business. We're always talking about, what are we going to do with this parking? What are we going to do with this house? But we try to start with building community first. So we try to get to know people. We try to make sure things are interesting and fun. And, once you get to know your neighbors, once you get to get a bit more comfortable with things, that's when we really start trying to talk about how do we improve the city, how do we share these ideas. And we find that's much more useful because these are problems and topics that aren't natural to most people.
What do you enjoy the most about the process of discussing an issue and bringing it then to somebody who can help you solve it and kind of, well, what's the best part about it?
I think it's definitely the community. It's, getting together to share ideas, to brainstorm on things. I'll give you a great example of for bus lanes on Bank Street. We've talked about it for a very long time. We've shared lots of ideas, but when we went to that case study competition that was put on by PAPM, Public Affairs Policy Management, I think it stands for, they had a lot of great ideas there that we didn't even think of. They had one where they wanted to put modal filters on the sides of the street. And, we went and we talked to them after and we said, hey, tell us more about this. We've been talking about this for months and we never thought about this idea. And this is a great idea. So, we want to learn from you.
And you mentioned that councillors were interested. Is it always the case? Is the city always responsive, or does it vary from time to time?
It depends on the situation. We try to pick our battles. We don't want to be a group full of people that are just yelling at councillors, that are complaining about things at all times. We find generally councillors are very, very receptive to the things we're pushing for. Another big thing we're pushing for is infrastructure maintenance. The city has a big, big infrastructure funding gap. And some councillors, suburban ones even, Sean Devine, Lane Johnson, have been very receptive to that messaging of, we have water pipes that are really, really old and they're going to burst sometime. And are we going to be ready for that? Are we going to be able to afford to fix that? Are we funding this properly? And that's something that, everyone should be worried about. We need clean water.
Right. No, that's very true. If you were to pick one successful case from the history of Strong Towns Ottawa, what would it be?
I think it's the fact that we continue to exist and that we are still getting people out to our meetings. Generally, how these community things go is they start up and there's a lot of interest and then they fizzle out. And the fact that 2.5, 3 years later, we're still around. We just officially became a nonprofit a couple months ago. We have some funding. We're working on getting more, and it's all from the community. We think that's a huge win because, it's not easy to run these things. It's they don't always last, and ours has so far, which we think is great news.
Yeah. No, it's absolutely great. A lot of people do not want to do much without funding or anything, any incentive, but this is nice. For someone who is hearing about Strong Towns Ottawa for the first time, what would you suggest to do, or where to go and how to get involved?
Yeah, I would say to visit our website, strongtownsottawa.ca, and I would say come out to an event. So we have our book club, which is typically the last Monday of the month. It moves around a bit, but the dates are always on our website. We have a monthly meeting that's typically the last Friday of every month. And, it's a casual thing. You don't need to do any homework before you come. If you live here, we consider you an expert on Ottawa. So we want to hear your thoughts. We want to know how you want to see the city improve.
I want to come back to the book club. So can you tell me more about the Urbanism Book Club, how the idea came to life, what was maybe the first book you read, or how does the process go, etc.?
Yeah, it's a funny story how the book club started. I was actually on Twitter a lot. I posted about the city of Ottawa all the time on it. And there was all these great people I knew from Twitter. And as you know, Elon Musk bought Twitter, and I lost my confidence in the site. It started to kind of fall apart. And I thought, well, how can I get offline and, connect with all these people? So we started the book club. In the first meeting, I thought there would be like 5 of us there. And I think there was like 20 or 25, which blew me away. And it's been great since then. So we meet about once a month, and we always discuss how to make Ottawa more sustainable, more affordable, more enjoyable. And as I've mentioned before, reading is optional. So we find that really is what really differentiates us. And we try to make it as enjoyable and not academic as possible.
I see. Is there a specific feature that you're looking for in a book, or how does the selection go?
Sometimes we do a poll. So we'll send it out to the members and they get to vote on what they want to do. In a case like this, like Ottawology, I mean, it's a local author. It's the kind of writing we want to support. So I just reached out to Tanya and said, hey, do you want to come to a conversation? And, went from there. So it all depends. Some I pick, some the group picks. And
I
yeah.
see. What stood out to me in that conversation is how much this work seems to begin with a very simple premise. People who live in a city usually know very intimately what isn't working in it. And that might sound obvious, but I actually think it's easy to forget. Conversations about housing, transit, zoning, infrastructure, all of that can become so technical, so bureaucratic, so full of policy language that ordinary people start to feel like they're not qualified to speak. But one of the things Derek kept returning to is the idea that if you live in Ottawa, you are already an expert in a certain sense. You know what it feels like to wait for a late bus. You know what it means to live in a neighborhood with nowhere nearby to get basic things. You know what kind of city makes daily life easier, and what kind of city quietly wears you down. I also appreciated that he didn't frame Strong Towns Ottawa as a group that just shows up to complain. What he described was something more constructive. People meeting, comparing notes, trying to make civic life more practitionary, and trying to do it in a way that doesn't feel alienating. That idea carries nicely into the next voice you're about to hear. After speaking with Derek, I also talked to Missy Thomas, who attended the event that evening. Her perspective adds something really important, because it shifts the focus from organizing a group to actually being a part of it, and to what it feels like when people from different backgrounds come together around a shared investment in the city. So, could you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Missy Thomas, and I'm a member of the Ottawa Urbanist Book Club.
So today we were here for the book talk event. How did you like it? What was your favorite part?
Oh, I always enjoy coming to these book talks. Yeah, I guess my favorite part of today. I guess my favorite part of the club in general is just hearing the diversity of opinions. I think we have one of the great things about our club is that we have people from who are from a lot of different demographics across our city, right? We have people from a wide variety of ages and backgrounds and professions, but they all come together because they have a shared passion about making Ottawa a better place to live. So just hearing. But of course, people, because of this, we don't always agree on how to make Ottawa a better place to live. So hearing with the different, problems people have and, the solutions they see is always very interesting. So I guess since this book was specifically focused on Ottawa, having that really place-based discussion, instead of having to apply a general book about urbanism to Ottawa, having the book have already talked about, Mechanicsville and the Glebe and Byward Market was a little bit interesting and helped ground our conversation, I thought.
Yeah, I was wondering, what was your first experience with Strong Towns Ottawa, and how long have you been going to these Ottawa book clubs, and how did you find out about it?
I think I found out about Strong Towns Ottawa through the book club, if I think about it. Yeah, I've been going to the book, I think the book club is about 2 years old. I think I've been going for about a year and a half. I found out about the book club through, Twitter. Back when I would sometimes go on it, Derek had an account where he'd post, promote it with, and I thought it sounded pretty interesting, and one of the first meetings happened to be at a community center pretty close to my house, so easy enough to head out. And through the book club, I found out about Strong Towns Ottawa and, some of the other events they have and also some of the interesting projects they work on.
I see. And I was curious about kind of the demographic of people who come here. What do you do,
So
the living?
So for me personally, I guess this is Ottawa, so unsurprisingly, I work for the federal government specifically. I work at ESDC. I do service design, which is really interesting. So we look at how to make government programs and services easier for people to access. I guess in a way, this tangentially impacts my interest in urbanism, right? Like I want to see how cities can be better places for people to live and I guess maybe very specifically provide services to, but just broadly provide a good quality of life to. So I feel like the demographics of a Strong Towns Ottawa meetup and the demographics of the book club can be a little different, right? Like sometimes we have meetups at a beer hall, so that skews a little younger, a little maybe rowdier, whereas the book club allows everyone gets together, has a good time, chats, discusses news of the day, problems they see of the city, that sort of things. Whereas the book club is obviously more centered around one specific book and attracts just again that broader demographic I was talking about.
What I liked about her reflection is that it got at something Derek was circling around, but from the participant side rather than the organizer side. She talks about the diversity of people in the room, not just in terms of age or profession, but in terms of perspective. And I think that's important because if a city is shared by everyone, then the conversation about that city probably should be too. It was also interesting to hear how the book club acts as an entry point. Not everyone arrives through policy, not everyone arrives because they already know the language of urbanism. Sometimes people arrive because a book sounded interesting, or because a discussion is happening close to where they live, or because they saw something online and thought, why not? And then from there, a broader sense of civic involvement begins to grow. I think that's what this episode left me thinking about most. The idea that city making doesn't only happen through elected officials or planning departments. It also happens in library rooms, or conversation, through community associations, through book clubs, through people noticing that their city needs and deciding to show up for it. And that, to me, is what makes groups like Strong Towns Ottawa worth paying attention to. Not because they have every answer, but because they create a space where people can actually begin asking the right questions together. If today's episode made you curious, you can learn more about Strong Towns Ottawa and their upcoming events on their website. And if nothing else, maybe it's a reminder that civic life does not have to begin with expertise. Sometimes it just begins with attention and with care for the place you live in. Thanks for listening. This has been The Place of Sound.